Hello and welcome to the Gaggle Challenge, and if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Samueli. With me today, of course, is Skippy, who's decided that since it's our last live stream of the year, he's decided to join us, provide some moral support and reassurance, and
and to get away from Apple. Okay.
exactly, yes. But luckily, he doesn't really go on and on about the tip jar like the other dogs do. I think he's just very good natured. And then now, and joining Skippy is Peter Lavelle from Moscow. How are you, Peter?
It's the end of the line for this year. Not much too good to report, I'm afraid, and that's among the things we will discuss today.
Yes, yes, indeed. Um, so yesterday we kind of anticipated the upcoming meeting in Mar-a-Lago between President Trump and Zelensky.
So,
But
can you distill it for me, George? Because I
no, I
read all
cannot.
the reports,
Uh,
and
no, it's distilling it is really rather difficult. I think one would have to say that, and I think we kind of, you know, anticipated that by saying that I was just going to fob him off. He's not going to agree to anything. Not going to commit himself to anything. Um, and
it,
he
I got the impression that he was more excited. And this is my personal impression, looking at the coverage. That Trump was more excited about the call he had with Putin before
well,
Zelensky,
there you go. Yes, I thought
and
you were going to. Yeah, go on.
anticipating the follow-up call with Putin.
That's right. Now, the what was also interesting is several times during the news conference that he had with Zelensky, Trump brought up the subject of the lunch that was provided for everybody. I don't know why, but he kept, preoccupying himself. I hope you enjoyed the lunch to Zelensky. I know
Well, he didn't get the lunch
all of
during the.
all of your people really enjoyed it.
Yeah, but Zelensky and company didn't get lunch during the after the disastrous
Yeah,
Oval
maybe
Office.
that's what the reference was. That's right. But it was very much, and he said, yeah, look, this lunch was better than what you get at the White House. So now, and then he kind of made a little joke, like now he's always going to want to come to Mar-a-Lago, and then the kids, I want to go to the White House. But he was quite preoccupied
Well,
with
he was sour
provided
grapes.
Mar-a-Lago.
He was sour grapes the whole time. I mean, his body language didn't hide
It's the
anything.
body language indeed. We'll take a look at the news conference. Indeed, what was interesting is he was doing something that you're not really quite supposed to do during a news conference, which is he was playing with his phone. I mean, he was sort of exchanging messages. At news conference, you're supposed to look interested at what the other person is saying. So you're supposed
At
to keep.
least pretend.
Yeah, exactly. You look at the person, occasionally nod. Yeah, exactly. Nod in agreement or smile or whatever. You're not supposed to be playing on your phone. That doesn't look good. Everyone can see you playing on your phone. Um, but anyway, before the meeting with Zelensky, we had the phone call because we weren't really expecting this that Trump would put in a phone call with Putin. But nonetheless, he did that, and then Trump sent out a truth saying we had a very good conversation with President Putin, but that was about it. However, the Kremlin put out quite a lengthy readout from the call. And so let's first of all take a look at that readout before we look at the Trump Zelensky news conference. So again, it's Ushakov, who kind of basically just met the press as they don't do readouts. They just have Ushakov giving a briefing. And so here it says the Ushakov says the telephone conversation between President Putin, President Trump has just ended. The conversation was organized at the initiative of the US president, who wanted to discuss with our president the current situation in the context of the Ukrainian conflict and the possibilities for its resolution. He wanted to discuss these issues before his face to face meeting with Zelensky later today at Mar a Lago. And then it's fitting that the presidents began their 1 hour and 15-minute conversation. One should also say that that's the Russians say it's 1 hour and 15 minutes. Trump later on said that it was about 2.5 hours. So there's some discrepancy in the numbers there. So 1 hour and 15-minute conversation by exchanging warm greetings for the Christmas and New Year holidays and naturally wishing happiness to the peoples of both countries. The rest of the conversation was equally friendly, cordial, and businesslike, characterized by mutual interest in advancing toward a peaceful, lasting resolution of the Ukrainian conflict. And then Donald Trump listened attentively to Russia's assessment of the realistic prospects of reaching an agreement. Our president made a very detailed arguments regarding the fundamental importance of continuing to rely on the fundamental Russian-American understandings reached during the Anchorage summit and the numerous contacts between representatives of the two administrations. And most importantly, the Russian and US presidents share broadly similar views. The temporary ceasefire proposed by the Ukrainians and Europeans under the pretext of preparing for a referendum or other pretexts will only prolong the conflict and risk a resumption of hostilities. A permanent end to hostilities requires, first and foremost, Kiev to make bold, responsible political decisions consistent with the ongoing work being carried out through the Russian-American channel. Given the evolving situation on the front lines, the Ukrainian regime would do well to make this decision regarding Donbass without delay. So what's important there is that they emphasize again, and this was interesting enough repeated by Trump during the news conference, that the ceasefire is not on, and then Trump seemed to agree with that during the news conference because he was asked that about the ceasefire. He said no, we want this a settlement, so that, I mean that I think is what they importantly they said. Okay, well, basically, no, don't come asking for a ceasefire from us. You're not going to get it.
Well, and also,
Trump
George,
agreed with that. Yeah.
it's important what was not mentioned, and the Europeans were not mentioned, and all their shenanigans that we've seen over the last few weeks.
Right.
Completely absent. You and I have talked about this. These people only talk among themselves, and when they seem to come to an agreement, they think it's meaningful, and it's not. Okay, and I think that readout there demonstrates that is that there've been negotiations going on behind the scenes, and this is an American-Russian agenda, and the Ukraine plays a minor role, and the Europeans play no role.
Right. No, that's right. That's right, and that's why all of these negotiations all seem always very strange, because it's like, oh, well, the peace talks. They keep talking about the peace talks, but these are conversations that are taking place between Zelensky and either Europeans, and then Zelensky and the Americans. But these aren't peace talks. I mean, peace talks have to take place between the warring parties. Talks among yourselves really aren't peace talks. But somehow the media keep repeating these peace talks, and indeed it's very, if one asks, well, what's the reason for this meeting? Well, the reason is to get Trump to agree to these proposals and then say these are the Trump proposals. This is the Trump peace plan, and that anybody who rejects it is therefore rejecting the Trump peace plan, and therefore he will have the full wrath of Trump to deal with. That's the only reason. That's what.
Yeah, but I mean,
how many peace talks taking place here?
It's more insidious than that, because they're saying this is the Trump peace plan that they have tinkered with. Well, it's not.
That's right. That's right. That's why Trump really wasn't buying any of that. He was just sort of, yeah, very nice lunch, nice to see you, but basically no commitments.
Well, and then also on the key issue, again, we always have to react to the narrative spin of the moment, which have been numerous ones since the start of this military conflict in 2022, is security guarantees.
Right.
And
Well,
even
we'll come to that. Yeah.
okay,
There's a
okay.
lot of that. Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody, George and I do not confer
Right.
before this.
That's
So
what the
sometimes I
security.
get ahead of my skis.
That's
Sorry.
that's right. Because when we talk already a lot about the security guarantees, um and that was indeed very much a bone of contention. Anyway, so here we have regarding Donbass without delay, and then it says Donald Trump insisted on the need to end the war as quickly as possible. He spoke of the impressive prospects for economic cooperation between the United States and both Russia and Ukraine, acknowledging that the Ukrainian crisis had been his most difficult. Trump said he was once again convinced of Russia's commitment to a political and diplomatic settlement. It is with this in mind that he intends to structure today's negotiations with Zelensky. And then it's worth noting that that during today's conversation, the Russian president agreed to take the American side's proposal to continue efforts to regulate the situation around Ukraine within the framework of two specially created working groups. One will address various aspects of security, and the other will focus on economic issues. The terms for the commencement of these working groups will be further agreed upon in the near future, likely in early January. Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump agreed to speak again promptly by telephone following the US president's meeting with the Ukrainian team at Mar-a-Lago this evening. Now, that conversation, as of yet, hasn't taken place, but it's expected to take place at some point soon. But so there wasn't a conversation. But then it would have been a little late to call the Kremlin after the meeting. So anyway, there was they had the meeting and the lunch, which as I said, Trump was very preoccupied with. Trump has this knack. He kind of reminds me a little of like Andy Warhol. Andy Warhol he had a conversational style whereby he would just simply say a complete non sequitur. Somebody would say something to him, and then he would say just a complete non sequitur. But it was a way of ending a conversation. That's you just talk about something else. You don't have because you don't want to talk about the subject at hand. Anyway, here was let's see if I can find the news conference afterwards. And let's just watch a little bit of this.
Meeting at this amazing place in his home in Mar-a-Lago, and we had a really great discussions on all the topics. We appreciate the progress that was made by American and Ukrainian teams in these recent weeks. Special thanks to Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, and thank you for their engagement and full commitment, and also to our team, first of all to Rustem Umerov and General Gnatov, and to all our teams. And we discussed all the aspects of the peace framework, which includes, and we have great achievements, 20-point peace plan, 90% agreed, and US-Ukraine security guarantees, 100% agreed. US, Europe, Ukraine security guarantees.
Now he's putting forward the idea that there's this huge agreement. These numbers, he's coming up with these numbers, these 95%, 100%. They're entirely made up.
You don't have an agreement until you have an agreement.
That's right. That's right. 95% is nothing. Anyway.
Almost agreed. Military dimension, 100% agreed. Prosperity plan being finalized, and we also discussed the sequencing of the following actions. And we agree that security guarantees is a key milestone in achieving lasting peace, and our teams will continue working on all aspects. We also had a joint call with European leaders, like President Trump said already, and a lot of leaders, including NATO and the EU. And we agreed that our teams will meet in upcoming weeks to finalize all discussed matters. And we agreed with President Trump that he will host us, and maybe in Washington, European leaders and Ukrainian delegation, yes, in January. And Ukraine is ready for peace. And once again, would like to thank President Trump for a warm welcome and substantial discussion. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you so much. Mr. President. Any questions, please?
We've heard some digits from Representative Zelensky, 90%, 100%. The U.S. Ukraine security guarantee. What number are we at right now?
Well, I think you can say 95%, but I don't like to say percentages. I just think we're doing very well. We could be very close. There are one or two very thorny issues, very tough issues, but I think we're doing very well. We made a lot of progress today, but really we've made it over the last month. This is not a one-day process deal. This is very complicated stuff, but I think when the president says 95, I think, it could be close to 95%. Yeah, please, behind you.
Mr. President, you agreed on the so-called free trade zone on Donbass. How to separate the sides? How to make the separation line? Who will be responsible?
The word agreed is too strong. I would say not agreed, but we're getting closer to an agreement on that, and that's a big issue. Certainly, that's one of the big issues, and I think we're closer than we were probably. It's unresolved, but it's getting a lot closer. That's a very tough issue, but one that I think will get resolved. Yeah, please.
We are seeing some mixed signals coming from Moscow, even after you spoke with President Putin. Can you assure us that you have received written or any formal response from them?
Well, what was the issue? You have to tell me. What did they say?
So they are telling that Ukraine has to give up Donbass. Just a recent statement coming out.
Well, that's what they've been asking for, and there's a dispute about that. So they're going to have to iron that out. That's an issue they have to iron out. But I think it's moving in the right direction.
If they reject or delay the solution or peace agreement that you try to achieve,
if something doesn't happen, you mean if something doesn't happen? Yeah, go ahead.
May I ask?
No, go ahead. You're going to finish your question.
Will there be any step that the United States be prepared?
Well, we'll see. Look, we'll see. But I don't want to talk about that because I think we're getting pretty close. Yes, please.
So you can see here, they're throwing out these questions. Yeah, we're very close. But what about these mixed signals? What mixed signals? Well, basically say Ukraine has to give up the Donbass. Well, that's what they're saying. I mean, they've been saying that for a long time. Okay, so
Why do you
how are
think
we getting close to the deal?
George, why do you think this meeting even happened?
Because I think Zelensky wanted it, and I think the Europeans wanted it. I don't really think that Trump particularly wanted this meeting. I think that this was Zelensky who kind of pushed for this meeting. I think they wanted to lock Trump in to this I don't know, making this is this is the Trump plan. This is going to go with the Trump plan.
We could also surmise is that it's part of a strategy. Is that Trump will say, "I was engaged every step of the way. You can't pin this on me. I hosted the guy. I had a busy schedule end of the year. I mean, I fit him in."
Right. Again,
okay?
no, that's right. That's right.
I think that it could be very much part of a strategy. I mean, what we just heard, there's no substance there.
No, none at all.
You're trying to catch air with a butterfly catcher.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, what they wanted from him is essentially, these security guarantees. That's the thing.
Yeah, right.
Or
assurances. Assurances were mentioned.
Yeah, the security, and then they basically, we'll have the free, this whole free trade zone. Who knows exactly what it means, but they know that Russia will reject it. And so what's that kind of, free trade? That's it's thinking that that might appeal to Trump. And then if Trump signs on and Russia says no, then again, hey, they're giving you the back of the hand. And thus, commit Trump to escalating against Russia. Anyway, this went on.
Please.
Yes, about territorial question, Mr. President. What is your take on Donbass status? Are you prepared to see it as a free economic or demilitarized zone?
No, we spoke about 20 points, and I'm happy that really our team's very close to results. And I agree with President Trump that our teams work not one day and not not 1 week, more than 1 month, beginning from Geneva, then 2 meetings in Miami, then we had Berlin, and now we have Mar-a-Lago. So this is a very difficult question. You know our position, so it's, this we have to respect our law and our people. We respect the territory which we control. And of course, our attitude is very clear. That's why President Trump said this is a very tough question. And of course, we have with Russia different positions on it.
And have you discussed referenda about?
No, when we speak about referendum, we spoke that it's one of the key. We can have referendum on any kind of points of this plan. I said that we can use referendum like for the plan, or we cannot use referendum. It's one of the key. We can use, this possibility of parliament to vote according to the law or to have referendum. Doesn't matter. This referendum, if the plan will be very difficult for our society, very difficult, of course, our society has to choose and has to vote because it's their land.
Yeah, but they won't vote on you.
Yes, that's right. It's sort of, but the point is, if you're going to have a referendum, and then you have a deal, and then you have a referendum that they vote against the deal, then what? I mean, you see, that's really the problem that you always get. If you're going to put it down it's all conditional on a referendum. Well, that's okay if you're pretty sure that the referendum is going to go in favor of the deal. If it doesn't, then of course everyone looks very stupid, and that never goes well. So I don't know. That seems like very, very dubious. But you can also see how Trump just seems very kind of disengaged with all of this as this continues.
I can easily understand that. I feel the same way, actually.
Yes. Anyway, let's move on a little bit further, and so here they bring up the subject of Zaporozhye, which is also one of the sticking points.
Good.
And how about Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant? Have you discussed this question?
On what?
Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant.
Yeah, we discussed that at length today. As you know, it's in pretty good shape. It can start up immediately, almost immediately. And it's one of the things I discussed with President Putin. And they were talking about the nuclear plant. It's probably the biggest in the world, just about the biggest anywhere in the world. Can you believe that? And President Putin's actually working with Ukraine on getting it open. He's been very good in that sense. He wants to see that open. And he hasn't hit it with missiles, hasn't hit it with anything. It's a big danger to do that for everybody. But they're working together to try and get it. It can open very quickly. It's in pretty good shape.
It's Zelensky. He doesn't like that answer.
Yes, he clearly doesn't. Yeah.
That today, 5,000 people. It's the biggest plant of its kind in the world.
In Europe.
They're working together to get it open. They could maybe get it open quickly. That's a big step when he's not bombing that plant.
Actually, it's operating, okay?
It's operating, but it's interesting that I think Trump seems unclear in his own mind who's actually in control of Zaporozhye, because it's the Russians are controlling it, so Putin wouldn't be hitting it because control of it.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
And the IAEA is actually right there. A deal was brokered remarkably with all parties, and it's doing some kind of diagnostics and basic maintenance repair. So, I mean, just because, it isn't a war zone and everyone should be very concerned. It's the Ukrainians have been hitting some of the adjacent and associated infrastructure around it, and the IAEA, with good reason, wants to make sure that there isn't some kind of cascade effect. So that's the status there.
Right, but
the bottom line is the Russians are going to keep that plant. Okay, that's
they're going to keep that plant. But that's interesting because it was the 20-point plan, which we talked about the other day. I mean, it goes on at great length about how it was going to be run by the Americans and the Ukrainians. And 50-50, Ukrainians would get the 50% of the energy
or a
produced.
third and a third.
Yeah. Now that was that's allegedly the American plan, a third, but the Ukrainian plan, which is 50-50, and then how much Russia gets, well, that's going to be up to the Americans. It's going to come out of their 50% share.
I feel with complete assurance saying that the deal that the Russians might agree to is they might sell some of the energy to Ukraine.
Right. That's right. And
since we're talking about the plant, as soon as the special military operation started and the Russians took it, the Ukrainian staff that was in the plant, they switched sides. They just said, "Hey, we're just going to keep working on this plant here. No politics in this plant here. We have to keep it running. We have to protect it." Very, very interesting. Okay, as far as I know, the same people that were there in the start are still there.
Right.
In the readout from Moscow, they talked about the creation of some working groups.
Yes.
Can you tell us about what those working groups would entail? And also, if you wouldn't mind, what is the message that you will give to Putin when you speak to him after your meeting?
So the working group is going to be composed of Steve Woodcock, Jared Kushner, General Raisin Kane, Marco Rubio, and a few other people that we're going to be putting onto it. I think Pete Hegseth should be in that working group. He knows the territory very well. He's been fantastic at what he's doing. And they may add one or two people. And likewise, Ukraine's going to have some very good people that were at lunch.
So this is the case. So going through the familiar names, and let's just then move on to let's move on to a little bit further.
No, I think we'll get it done. I don't want to say when, but I think we're going to get it done. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. President, you in the past have suggested a trilateral meeting between both President Putin and Zelensky. Is
Right.
that something that is also on the docket?
I see that happening, sure, at the right time. I saw a very interesting President Putin today. I mean, he wants to see it happen. He wants to see it. He told me very strongly. Believe him. Don't forget, we went through the Russia hoax together. And he'd call me, I'd call him, I'd say, can you believe the stuff that they're making up? And it turned out we were right. They made it all up. And
This tells you where his mind is, George.
Yeah, no, that's it. He's very
what the headspace is. You can that answer tells you so much about what he thinks.
Right, but that's right. And that Zelensky didn't help him out at the time he was actually impeached.
And didn't help him at all.
Didn't help him at all. Exactly.
So we didn't get into problems, but we weren't able to trade very much or any of that, which was a shame because, a lot of success could have been had by trading with Russia. They have great land, great minerals and other things, and we have things that
minerals. He's got minerals on the mind.
Yes.
Which was a terrible, made-up, fictional thing by Crooked Hillary and by Adam Shifty Schiff and bad people, sick people. They made it up. It was all a made-up hoax.
This tells you everything about what he thinks.
Yes.
From dealing with Russia, kept Russia dealing, from dealing with us. So, but despite that, we got along, and I don't know. I think we're going to get there. I know him very well. I think we're going to get there.
Did you discuss time, location, meeting place?
Yeah, we're discussing a lot of things. Look, I was on the phone with him for almost, I guess, 2.5 hours. They're just telling me.
So that's what I mean. There's somewhat discrepancy about the numbers.
Yeah, everything has to be
always very prone to exaggerating numbers.
Bigger and better. It's the superlative present.
Yeah. So if you say 1 hour and 15 minutes, he doubles it. Think of a number, double it.
That's the real estate guy in him.
Yeah.
It's a long time. We discussed a lot of things. We didn't talk about the weather. What a beautiful day it is in Palm Beach, Florida. Yes.
Charles, President Zelensky mentioned maybe a meeting with European leaders back in Washington. Would that be in the next few weeks?
Well, in Washington or someplace, yeah. These leaders that I just read, these are great people. They've spent a lot of money on helping Ukraine. They're doing it for themselves also, meaning their
He
country.
hates them all.
Yeah, they're great people. They're all great guys.
They hate you, Donald Trump.
And he knows they hate him. They know they're always plotting against him. Anyway, just one
I've
more.
always been very suspicious of men that wear black on black, and Zelensky's doing that black on black thing.
Okay.
And some are celebrated people. They're very celebrated. But it's so sad that a thing like that would happen. Yes, ma'am.
President Trump, obviously security is a major issue for the Ukrainians.
Right.
Did you offer any promises, any assurances today?
Well, I did. We want to work with Europe, and Europe is going to take over a big
Here
part
we
of it.
go.
You can imagine, they're right there. But we're going to help Europe 100%, like they'd help us. Yes, ma'am. You were going to say?
So that's it. So Europe.
That's so telling. Is that
Right.
There's something going on here. It's very difficult to pinpoint it, but he has a default position in his head, George. The Europeans.
Yes, he said, yeah, sure, yeah, it's they've invested a lot of money. Security, absolutely, security assurances, and we're going to help them, whatever help means. But remember, Keir Starmer, he talked about the American backstop. They're not just talking, oh, help us. You're going to, send a few guns. No. It's the American backstop, the American guarantee. And that's not coming out from Trump.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, on your
Who you with?
conversation, Andrea Shalom with Reuters.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. So in your conversation with President Putin, did you discuss what responsibility Russia will have for any kind of reconstruction of Ukraine post an agreement?
I did.
And
Russia's going to be helping. Russia wants to see Ukraine succeed. Once, it sounds a little strange, but I was explaining to the president, President Putin was very generous in his feeling toward Ukraine succeeding, including supplying energy, electricity, and other things at very low prices. So a lot of good things came out of that call today, but they were in the works for 2 weeks with.
No.
I really wish we could see.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Yeah, Russia wants Ukraine to succeed. That we didn't see his face, but there were reports that he was scowling when he said that Russia wants Ukraine to succeed. But this is
in fact, I truly believe that. They do not want you don't want a failed state on their border. Okay?
Right.
Success can be defined in many ways.
Right, exactly. But the point there is the way Trump has completely redefined the basically America's perspective on this. I mean, it's just Russia wants to succeed. Whenever he talks about this, there's never any moralistic outrage and condemnation of Russia. He just said, oh, this is a terrible war. It needs to come to an end. Wouldn't have happened had I been president, but now it needs to end. That's his perspective. He just says, I want this to end. I want the killing to end. But there's none of the all the furious, enraged statements that you get from the Europeans. These great guys, these fantastic guys, the highly respected NATO Secretary General, but there's none of it. And so, but yeah, I mean, you can see Zelensky was not happy.
I like the comment I just saw here on my screen here. Zelensky feels like a foster child at this point. Very good observation. Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. You go from mommy to daddy, daddy to mommy, where you're going to get your love from, okay? And it's dissipating. I mean, for the Europeans, Zelensky's a problem child, not loved, okay? A problem child.
Steve and Jared and Marco and everybody.
Did Russia agree, or did Putin agree to a ceasefire to allow a referendum to take place?
Not a ceasefire, and that's one of the points that we're working on right now. No, not a ceasefire. He feels that, look, they're fighting and to stop, and that if they have to start again, which is a possibility, he doesn't want to be in that position. Now, I understand that position. The president feels strongly about that or something. But I think we're finding ways that we can get around that. But I understand President Putin from that standpoint. You have to understand the other side. And, I'm on the side of peace. I'm on the side of stopping the war. So, but I think that's a problem that's going to get solved.
With people who.
All right, so you can see there, Mommy just said, yeah, I can see that. So that's it. All that early talk about ceasefire, that's it. Is just he's not calling for a ceasefire. So that was, as I said, that was very much in this the Uvashov phone conversation. Where it said, yeah, this is basically they were in agreement that a ceasefire. There's no need for a ceasefire. All right. Anyway, the the media coverage. So that was the let's see. Let me just find this where we are. Yeah. So the so here we are. So after the meeting, then we have Zelensky sent out this tweet. And I thank Donald Trump for a great meeting. We had a substantive discussion on all issues, and we much appreciate the progress achieved by American and Ukrainian teams. Special thanks to Witkov, Jared Kushner, and so on. And then we discussed all aspects of the peace framework and achieved significant results. We also discussed a sequence of further actions. We agreed that security guarantees are key on the path to achieving a lasting peace, and our teams will continue working on all aspects.
But it doesn't. But it's very, and probably intentionally, or some kind of omission. Who's going to be guaranteed security?
No, that's right.
It doesn't say.
No, it doesn't. But he has to. He knows when he has a meeting with Trump, he has to keep Trump happy, and therefore, because Trump himself had made it vague, he doesn't want to start, putting things down on Twitter Space that Trump is going to distance himself from almost immediately. So, security guarantees key on the path to receiving a lasting peace. Our teams will continue working on all aspects. We agreed that our teams would meet as early as next week to finalize all discussed matters. And that's it. We also agreed with President Trump that he will host Ukrainian and European leaders in Washington in January, which he didn't say. That's not what he said. We just watched him at that news conference. They said, yeah, in principle, but he didn't say it would be in Washington. It's more likely to be in Washington. He's not going to go to Europe to meet the European leaders.
He's not going to go to Kiev.
No, he's certainly not going to do that. And here's the Financial Times, which basically say, that these talks, after all the expectations, failed to deliver breakthrough. But, whenever they say breakthrough, it always suggests also peace talks breakthrough. But the breakthrough was Trump committing himself to Ukraine. That's what they mean by breakthrough. And then here it says, U.S. President Donald Trump said a breakthrough to end the war in Ukraine was getting a lot closer. But in a WhatsApp chat with reporters as he returned to Europe on Monday, Zelensky said a U.S. security guarantee currently under discussion would expire after 15 years, a duration the Ukrainian president said would be too short. I told Trump who would really like to consider the possibility of a 30, 40, 50-year guarantee, Zelensky said, adding that Trump said he would think about it. While Trump and Zelensky praised each other at a press conference after that discussion, they yielded. And here then Zelensky today, did a Twitter storm and says, what did we achieve during our meeting with President Trump? Notice he asks this question as if because that's obviously on everybody's mind. Yeah, what did you achieve? The President of the United States confirmed strong security guarantees. He confirmed the details that had been developed up to this point by our negotiating teams regarding those security guarantees, and he confirmed that they would be put to a vote by the United States Congress. That's a very strong agreement.
Well, when it comes to a president presenting a treaty or something resembling a treaty, I would prefer to hear it from the president of the United States, not the
Well, that's right. He didn't say that.
Ex-president of Ukraine.
Right, exactly. He didn't say that, and he wasn't part of the readout after the meeting. In fact, I didn't see a readout from Trump. We just had the news conference, but there was no readout from Trump as to the meeting. So, say, "Oh, I'm going to submit it to Congress." That's them serious words. Here we have. Then it goes on. This is a very strong agreement, but there's no agreement. Second, we discussed a package of support for Ukraine's recovery after the war ends, an economic package. This includes the entry of American business, special conditions for Ukraine's development and reconstruction, and the development of a free trade agreement with the United States. The President of the United States also confirmed this.
Well, everyone, there is a prehistory to this. This includes entry of American business, special conditions for Ukraine's development. Hunter Biden and that crew already tried this, okay?
That's right. And then another tweet sent out by Zelensky, our teams have discussed this, and yesterday we agreed with the president that we will have strong security guarantees from the United States. At present, they are not permanent. In the documents, the guarantees are set for 15 years. But it's interesting when they talk about the documents, but the documents haven't been published. So what's the standing of these documents? No one has seen these documents.
Well, this is most likely just sabotage. Okay,
right.
At the very least, it's a political faux pas. You don't do this unilaterally. Okay, these were behind closed doors meetings, and one party is blabbing, gossiping.
Right.
I mean, and I see it as sabotage. Okay.
Well, I think so, because if you let's say there's a document presented by the Ukrainians suggesting 15-year security guarantees, but what does that mean? The Americans haven't signed on to this, and we have the meeting in Berlin. But that doesn't really matter because, those aren't the important players. Yeah, Friedrich Merz signed on, Emmanuel Macron signed on, but it doesn't have any standing because you're talking about a United States commitment. So Merz and Macron are not in any position to affect a United States commitment.
Yeah.
And set for 15 years with the possibility of extension. I raised this issue with the president. I told him that our war has already been going on for more than a decade, and therefore we would very much like the guarantee to last longer. We would like to consider the possibility of 30, 40, or 50 years.
Well, it's very interesting, George, that he would admit that in public. I told him that our war has already been going on for more than a decade. Oh, so there was a unprovoked attack in 2022, huh? Oh, no. Let me correct the record. It's been going on since 2014. That's the first time he's ever admitted that in public. You and I and our people in our lane have been saying this from the get-go, okay? Now there's an admission to this, okay? So unprovoked attack is, cross that off your bingo card.
Right. And it says, the president said that the U.S. would consider it. So Trump keeps saying, yeah, I'll think about it. I'll give it some thought. And then he says, again, yet another tweet. We have been developing a sequencing plan with the U.S., the sequence of actions. Our strategy is to move step by step when and what we want to finalize and coordinate with our partners. First and foremost, we now want to hold a meeting at the National Security Advisors level in the coming days. Rustem Umerov had already reached out to the advisors, American and European, and I believe that this meeting will be held in Ukraine. Well, I don't think, I mean, the national security advisor of the United States is Marco Rubio. I don't think Rubio is going to go to Ukraine. He hasn't been to Ukraine at all.
Again, this is all unilateralism.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have absolutely zero confirmation that any of this is in play. Zero.
That's right. And then next, we will prepare all documents at the advisors level, and then there will be a meeting at the level of European leaders, initially with Ukraine in an expanded format, including the coalition of the willing plus. And this meeting will take place. I began discussing it immediately after my meeting with President Trump. I've already reached out to President Macron and several other partners, and I will continue these consultations.
Oh, that's music to Trump's ear, I'm sure. Okay.
I've already talked to them. And, you know, we love talking about meetings. At this meeting, we will finalize the documents at the level of leaders, and we will prepare for a meeting with President Trump and European leaders. We are all seriously committed to ensuring that these meetings will take place in January. And after that, if everything proceeds step by step, there will then be a meeting in one format or another with the Russians. We are ready for the relevant formats that we have already discussed. I have to say, I don't understand any of that. I mean, I'm just reading and reading. It all goes complete gibberish.
Well, I mean, let's think about it logically, everyone. Okay, let's say that this ridiculous circle jerk that he just described. Fine, let's just take it at face value. I mean, it's been going on for years. So the relevant document. Well, if you're going to have Russian interlocutors, they have to see this document in advance. And if they see the document and say, no, we don't really need to meet about this, so we're not interested. I mean, they're just assuming that, you know, they're going to force the Russians to meet them and discuss this.
All right, well, that's it. The Russians are there's not. Because we already had the comment of a few days ago by Ryabkov, the deputy Russian foreign minister, says, well, basically these changes that Ukraine and the Europeans have made to the documents, the 20-point plan, that's unacceptable to us. So there's not going to be any discussion about this is already unacceptable. There's nothing to discuss. But and that's what Zelensky is talking about. You know, the 20-point, and then he's going beyond that. We're going to be talking about these 30-year commitments. And then here we have, I think he sent out another tweet. Yes, another tweet.
He must have done it on the airplane.
There's no alternative to peace. Together with the Americans, we share a single position. The war must be ended through diplomacy, and Russia must be pressed into it. Otherwise, the war will continue. Certainly, if the war continues, the Americans, together with the Europeans, will continue to support Ukraine because we are defending ourselves in this war. We are fighting, and we are not the aggressor. And then another tweet. The Russians' attitude toward a referendum is not positive. Well, it's not quite that. It's just that they're not going to give you a ceasefire. I mean, I think it's that I haven't said.
Well, I mean,
they said we're not going to hold a ceasefire while you have a referendum.
Well, it has been mentioned that sure, on election day there'll be peace in the skies, but there's an added
point.
But
that's not the issue. The issue is whether a referendum campaign. They're talking about a 60-day referendum campaign, not just
blah blah blah
election
blah.
Day. That's the Russians.
Holding your elections is your business. You know, good luck with it. Okay, on election day, people can go to the polls, no problem. But there's an added caveat. Ukrainians living in Russia should have the right to vote. Okay, that's not mentioned very often, but that is a very strong sticking point, which they know the Ukrainians will never go along with, and the Europeans will never go along with. Okay,
that's right.
And if they truly believe that the Donbass and Crimea is part of Ukraine, then they should have a right to vote, huh?
Right.
I mean, none of this makes any sense. Okay,
right. No, I mean that's very interesting because he was asked, I think, at some point in the news conference as to who would be entitled to vote. You know, what about the Ukrainians who have left Ukraine, but he only made a reference to the Ukrainians who had left for the West, and he seemed to think, yeah, they can vote, but did not at all address the issue. But what about the Ukrainians living in Russia?
Yeah, well, that goes directly against the general policy of Kiev towards the men in what is it now, the diaspora. They deny them consular services, but they're going to allow them to vote.
Yeah.
How are you going to square that circle?
And there's also
this guy never quits, does he?
No. And there's also
Twitter is supposed to be about economy of words, huh?
Well, if you get if you get a blue tick, there's no word limit. And there's also an issue of the force of these agreements, the force of recognizing these agreements. Ukraine had the Budapest Memorandum signed by individuals, and they did not work. Then
no, that's not true at all. It worked exactly the way it was planned.
Well, that's right. That's right. But you see, he says this simply because so many people in the West don't know what was in the Budapest Memorandum. So that's why he brings it up. So, oh yeah, we feel really guilty about that. So he's trying to create these feelings of guilt. Oh yeah, we made all these commitments in Budapest, and we never really followed through on those commitments. It's totally untrue, but he's playing on people's ignorance. Same when he says here, then there were the Minsk agreements, which led to a full-scale war. Even though in his own election campaign in 2019, he kind of promised to implement the Minsk agreements. None of these papers worked. We have now agreed with the Americans that we will have security guarantees that will be supported by the U.S. Congress. Again,
this is
didn't say anything like that at the news conference.
If this was coming from an American national security official, then maybe it would have some credence. It's coming from someone that is no longer legally in power in Ukraine. I mean, again, who's prompting this? Who's running his strategy here? Because Trump, the people that are agreeing with Trump on this here are going to say, "What is this guy doing?"
Right. Well, he's the president. I mean, you could say, yes, the Russians could say, you can make all kinds of legal arguments and saying, well, he's not legally president, not according to the Constitution, but he is the president. So, he's the only president.
He has the power. He has power.
Well, he's the president. So ultimately, who else are you going to deal with? You're only dealing with him.
But it's a bit rich, George. I think you would agree. Here's a guy that is legally not president, and he's talking about legal issues. Okay, it's a bit rich.
Yeah. Anyway, he then you see doing this a lot of this tweeting. Given that was a brief news conference, it wasn't long. He spent more time on these tweets, and then it says, as for the 20-point plan, we believe it should be approved through a referendum. This will be the strongest historical endorsement of the force of this document. And we would very much like to do this. Of course, not everyone views this positively because this clearly leads to open expression of the will, not of one person, not of 450 people. We're talking about millions of people. It is crucial that this be an expression of the Ukrainian people's will so that the Ukrainian nation accepts this peace and supports this plan. That is why a referendum is a powerful tool. Ukrainians who have suffered more than anyone else in this war should be happy about the end of this war and the format of the agreement. This is what a just peace is about. So the problem with this, again, is that he's trying to be cute here, because you can say, okay, well, we'll have a referendum. Oh, well, we need a ceasefire during the referendum campaign, so that's 60 days. And then, of course, if you want the Ukrainian people to reject the deal, it's not hard. The government can easily get them to reject the deal. If you basically campaign against the deal, then it'll be rejected, and he'll turn around and say, look, I did my best. I was trying to work with you, and, the Ukrainian people have spoken. They rejected the deal. So it's just a way of, well, we put it to the people, and the people rejected it. So they can get the outcome that they want.
Exactly. Okay. This unicorn idea of a referendum. Will there be international observers there too? The Kiev regime, if they're running an election, well, they will get the result they want.
Right. That's it. So that it's so utterly, it's so deceitful. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll have a referendum, and we will be committed to the result of that referendum.
Well, I mean, with votes like that have multiple issues they can discuss. How about a presidential election,
Yeah.
or just vote up or down on Zelensky's presidency? Just that,
Right. No,
Okay.
I think that's right. I mean, if you can have a campaign, a referendum campaign, you can certainly have a presidential campaign. Um, anyway, then another. Oh, he's yet another tweet. I told you here that there was a real Twitter storm today. As for a withdrawal from Donbass, it is no secret that Russia wants this. In their fantasies, they would like us not to exist on the territory of our own country at all. These fantasies have been around for years, but we have our own land, our own territorial integrity, our own state, and our own interests. We will act in accordance with the interests of Ukraine. Um, and,
Good luck. Good luck with that.
And then again, one more. We are interested in Russia giving us the money and that it be reparations. For us, what matters is receiving the money to rebuild our state.
Oh,
And,
right. Receive money for what? Okay. All
right. And reparations-based loans, we have already resolved this with the Europeans because most of the frozen assets are located there. I'm glad they supported our position. We will receive the first 100 billion over the next 2 years in equal tranches. If there is no war, we will spend this money on rebuilding our state. If we have to defend ourselves, we will have the money to pay.
I'm sure. I'm not surprised he brings up the money. Okay.
Well, yeah, because that's the money. So that was his Twitter storm. But it's clear though that obviously the Europeans kind of pushed for this meeting. He sends out these tweets, essentially kind of reassuring the Europeans. But it's clear from everything that happened at Mar-a-Lago that basically nothing very much was decided on. Trump is not signing on to this and saying, "Hey, this is my plan," and it had better be implemented.
Well, it's a very good point, George. I don't know if we saw the entirety of it all, but did Trump say once "my plan"? I don't think those words.
He didn't say anyway. So when he says, "Yeah, we're very close," close to what? I mean, it's like so he never really spells out, that oh yeah, we're really getting there, just definitely getting where? What are we getting to? Because he's not negotiating. That's why, I mean, he's actually at least sees the problem, which is that if you are going to have a peace deal, you kind of have to get the two sides on board. You can't just have talking among yourselves, discuss this among yourselves, because that's not going to get you anywhere. So I think he actually does see the problem. The Europeans do not. They just want they just want to get this thing, on there. Says, yeah, this is the Trump plan. Russians have rejected the Trump plan, and now Trump is under an obligation to sign on to security guarantees, sanctions, arms deliveries, support us, if we loot all the sovereign assets, so that we'll have America's backing for doing that. That's the plan. But Trump is not going to go along with that.
I mean, from what we saw, the press approach there, Trump never, at least I didn't hear it, when he said, I don't think he said we outside of we spoke, Zelensky and Trump, but he never spoke we, the Americans and Europeans. He never put them in the same category.
No.
It's always the Europeans will be responsible for that. They will be, they'll be required to do that. There was no we. And Trump usually has a problem with we in different circumstances. Okay.
Yeah. So that was the meeting yesterday with Zelensky, and then today Trump's got another meeting in Mar-a-Lago, and that is with Bibi Netanyahu. This is his sixth visit to Trump, so that no one else has come anywhere close.
This year.
Yeah, sixth visit since January the 20th. So no one else has come anywhere near this. Zelensky has come a few times. I think he's probably number 2, but Netanyahu is number 6. And so it's interesting, what exactly does Netanyahu want? Because he's the one who really pushed for this meeting. And as we'll look at this article in Axios, which makes clear that it was Netanyahu who wanted this meeting. Trump, he's on holiday. He doesn't want to do anything. Um, but this is Netanyahu. So we already discussed about a week ago the plan to deal with the ballistic missile threat from Iran. So that's the issue, and that of course raises the very interesting question with Trump, because Trump has never made that an issue, which is the ballistic missiles. He said about Iran cannot have nuclear weapons. Never said that Iran can't have ballistic missiles. I was going to raise that issue with him. But then, of course, you've got the next issue, which is the phase two of the Trump 20-point plan. So as we know, we've already done the phase one. Yeah, we've done all the hostages, the remains of the dead hostages. But then there's the phase two plan, which involves, of course, the setting up of this Palestinian technocratic government, and under the auspices of the board, the president,
Board of Peace.
Board of Peace, exactly, which Trump is chairman. And then, of course, there's the international security force that's supposed to move in. There's supposed to be then disarmament of Hamas. But of course, there should also be withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza. So that's quite a tall order. I mean, the phase two is obviously the big, the big enchilada. That's the key part of the deal. It was always obvious that the hostages part would be resolved, fairly straightforward fashion. But the rest is not going to be so easy. So then you say, okay, so why is Bibi coming? Well, Bibi is going to tell him, yeah, we need phase two. Oh, yeah, and what's phase two? Phase two is we disarm Hamas. Oh, okay, that's it. But it's clear, though, from just look at a few stories, is that at least some on the Trump team are just not buying what Bibi is selling. So the key here is going to be, can Bibi get around Trump? Because Trump seems to be, of all the people in the administration, he seems to be the one most positively inclined towards Bibi. Anyway, here's a story from Axios. And here's this. Netanyahu's Mar-a-Lago visit crucial for the future of Gaza deal. This is this Barak Ravid, who seems to be very well plugged in the administration and in Israel. So President Trump plans several big announcements on Gaza in early January, but the next steps hinge on his meeting on Monday at Mar-a-Lago with Netanyahu. White House officials think Netanyahu is slow walking the peace process.
You think?
And fear he will resume the war with Hamas. Really? I wonder what gave rise to that fear. But while the Israeli prime minister is butting heads with Trump's team, he hopes to bring the president himself over to his more hawkish point of view. And then it says the White House wants to unveil a Palestinian technocratic government and the international stabilization force for Gaza as soon as possible, and potentially even convene the Trump-led Board of Peace at the World Economic Forum in Davos later in January.
Wow, Trump is going to go to Davos? Wow.
He went. I think he went last year. Well, he went 1 year. I'm not sure it was last year, but he did go 1 year.
Yeah.
Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff and his advisor and son-in-law Jared Kushner have been working with the Egyptians, Qataris, and Turks to finalize those agreements and lay the groundwork for phase two of the deal, which involves Hamas handing over weapons and Israeli forces.
Oh, right. So the Egyptians, Qataris, the Turks, maybe the Indonesians, they're going to do Israel's dirty work for them?
Well, that's the idea. But
really? Really? Okay.
But that's the interesting aspect of it, because the Israelis aren't buying it. Then the Israelis don't believe they're going to do Israel's dirty work. So the Israelis are saying, look, they're never going to do it. Are you serious? The Egyptians are going to disarm Hamas? Indonesians, Pakistanis, Turks, Qataris are going to do it? No, they're not going to do it. So only we can do it. So please give us the green light to go back in and do it. And that's why they think, well, he just wants to restart the war.
That's right. So allow us to act genocidal to bring peace.
Right. That's right. But the problem for Netanyahu is that if he does that, if that's the plan, let's say we go back in and start the whole thing all over again, then what happens to the 20-point plan? And that's that's Trump's pride and joy. Hey, I brought peace in the Middle East. That's my 20-point.
For the first time in 3,000 years.
For the first time in 3,000 years. And now, I went to Sharm el Sheikh. I went to the Knesset. So if you start the whole thing up again, then boom, the 20-point plan goes up in flames.
Well,
so that's also Netanyahu's problem.
By the way, we have to attack Iran again. Okay.
Well, that's another thing. Yes, and so you can see why the people are not happy about this visit. And there it says Trump's top team has grown increasingly frustrated as Netanyahu has taken steps to undermine the fragile ceasefire and stall the peace process.
Not even fragile. Jeez.
Like the Biden administration before them, Trump's team has found itself bickering with the Israelis for weeks on tactical matters like opening the Rafah crossing with Egypt and supplying tents to displaced Palestinians seeking shelter for the winter.
Oh, wow. Tents, a big bickering point. Giving people tents in winter. Wow. It's really amazing what they can bicker about.
Right. Is JD, Marco, Jared, Steve, Susie, he has lost them. The only one he has left is the president, who still likes him. But even he wants to see the Gaza deal moving faster than it is right now. This is a White House.
Do you think Trump likes Netanyahu? He might. Then that's the only person on this planet that does.
It's a very good question. I don't know whether I think he has a certain fondness for tough guys. And I think he kind of sees Netanyahu as a tough guy. So I think he just responds to that. Just like I think he likes Erdogan, I think he likes Putin. There are certain people he likes, and there's certain people clearly he just doesn't hit it off with. Like Macron,
Macron. That's instantly my person. Or
yeah, it's not. It doesn't like work.
Stoop.
Stub, because Stub. Hey, I came to America on a golf scholarship. I was that good. I went to university on a golf scholarship. It's kind of thing from respect. Hey, he went to university on a golf scholarship. Not much academic credentials.
No, but I mean, Trump would say, golf is what you get when you're a success. You don't become a success through golf unless you're, these famed, golfers that he really admires a lot. But I mean, yeah, that's kind of like I got into politics through postmodern Mongolian dance.
Right. Yes, that's it. But I mean, if you say, okay, I studied whatever, economics or physics at university, Trump doesn't matter to him. He also went to Wharton, so that doesn't impress him. But if you say, I went to university on a golf scholarship, hey, that's a neat racket. Just you got into university on the strength of playing golf, because of course that American universities are notorious in basically they're getting like footballers, really world-class footballers. They have to get them into the university, but they obviously have no academic credentials whatsoever, so they have to rig everything to get them into the university. They have to at least they can't pass the exam, so they have to find some way around it. So, hey, we've got a serious footballer in our academic program. So I think Trump kind of respects that. Wow, hey, he got a golf scholarship. Um, so, um, I mean, I had that once once when I was teaching. There was a kind of a guy who was getting to one of these universities. He was from Africa on a basketball. They wanted to get him in because he was such a good basketball player. But they had to, according to their rules, he had to pass some exams. First of all, he had to pass the exam for basic English, because I can't remember what country he was from, but he didn't have basic English, so they had to can you just coach him to just so that he can pass this basic English exams, and then he can go and play basketball for us.
I had something very similar. I was teaching undergraduates at UC Davis, and there was this up and coming tennis guy. He was multiracial, had, trophy blonde girlfriend, and they both came into my office and says, "How are we going to get him through?" And I said, "By doing the work." Okay.
No, that ain't gonna happen.
I can't tell the whole story because I don't want to get people in trouble, but there was a lot of shenanigans. I just didn't budge. Okay. So suddenly he was in somebody else's class.
Right. But when you look, I mean, because professional sports is such a big deal, or not professionals, like university sports is such a big deal for any university. They make a lot of money on university sports. So this is very serious. They have to recruit people who are going to be like Stanford Football Club, Stanford University. But these are people who spend all their time playing football. They're not going to go to the physics class and do their laboratory work. So they have to do a lot of.
Well, I mean that's what we call the hard sciences. Okay, I mean, I was asking this kid to read 2 books. And I was at his disposal at all times to explain the 2 books to him. Okay. I mean, I think I went the extra mile, even that wasn't.
No, because they can't do it. I mean,
it wasn't
they have rudimentary reading skills. So, Stub, that was so this was a return to this. And here it was Netanyahu who raised the idea of a meeting with Trump over the holiday period in a December the 1st phone call, according to these White House officials. So he raised the subject. Trump said he'd be happy to see Netanyahu, and the Israeli prime minister took it literally. I just went, yeah, sure, let's do lunch sometime. And then with his team leaking that the meeting would take place at Mar-a-Lago, and pushing the White House to lock in a date, according to the White House officials. At first, Trump wasn't sure he needed to meet Netanyahu so soon for a 5th time since returning to office. And then last Friday, Witkoff and Kushner met in Miami with the Prime Minister of Qatar, the head of Egyptian intelligence, and the Turkish foreign minister to discuss the next steps in Gaza. And then they agreed that Trump would raise with Netanyahu the need for the IDF to adhere to the ceasefire and avoid civilian casualties. So Trump would raise Netanyahu, hey, we're supposed to have a ceasefire in place. Do you think you could get the IDF to adhere to it? Could you ask them not to kill civilians? I mean, that would be helpful. The parties also agreed to move forward with naming the technocratic government as soon as possible so it can assume responsibility for day-to-day governance in place of Hamas.
What is there to govern?
I don't know.
I mean, the medical system, the hospitals, well, they're not functional. They don't have electricity. They don't have any. Maybe trash collection. Okay. Oh yeah, the whole place is. Who's insulting our intelligence here?
Well, who's governing right now? I mean, Hamas is governing right now.
There is no governance.
Well, there has to be some governance. I mean, there's at least some. There has to be some kind, at least a minimal amount of governance. You can't have complete non-governance. So Hamas is at the moment, the rudimentary governance. But of course, that's only the whatever 47% of Gaza that isn't occupied by Israel. But I think the idea is that, well, hey, now this Palestinian technocrats are going to take over. But that in itself is difficult. I mean, I don't know how you can
Yeah.
sort of take over. Right,
Well, I mean,
you're prime minister now. Okay, great.
yeah. But what that does also is that you are the technocratic government of 47%. That's turning into facts on the ground. Now this is what
Right. No,
Gaza is. It's
yeah,
47%
yeah,
now.
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
It's that will be, it'll be a knife that'll be turned. Okay. Well, if we have to accept, okay, then they get 53%. Okay.
Right. No, that's exactly that's still part of the phase two, which is not just disarmament of Hamas. It's supposed to be Israeli withdrawal. And then it says the idea is to convince Hamas and other armed groups that the new Palestinian government is the only entity in charge of law and order and authorized to use weapons.
Well, that's not going to go down too well. Look, Hamas has made it very clear that they do not want to govern. Okay, that's something that they've made clear all through the negotiations. If they're not being assassinated, okay, but
Right.
they've made it clear that they do not want to be the governing force. Making them disarm, that's going to be a
Well, that's right. That ain't gonna fly. Anyway, let's say before time runs out, let's take a look at our.
I see. There's a bookcase comment in the.
Yeah, bookcase. Yes, I know that. I think that's from our good friend Jenny, who's has brought up the subject before.
Yeah. Well, I think we all know.
You got to get yourself a bookcase.
George has bookcase envy. I have to admit
That's right.
it.
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree. Bookcases do look very, very nice. Anyway, so Stone River, a good friend, Stone River, asks, do you think Trump has a strategy? For example, string Zelensky along while starving Ukraine and letting Europe pick up the tab if it wants to, or is it just weak and being played? If the former, it might work eventually, but if the latter, U.S. ensnaring escalation could be around the corner. That's a really good question as to what is he playing, because at times it looks like he's just being ensnared by the Ukrainians and Europeans. On the other hand, they haven't really succeeded in doing so. This whole plan. Oh yeah, he's going to basically say, yeah, this is my 20-point plan, and I'm ready to do whatever Zelensky wants. He hasn't done that. He's just sort of yeah, this is great. These are all great guys, fantastic. But in the meantime, he's making the Europeans pay for any arms that they're sending. And he's not giving them these the security guarantees, the American backup. So I think he's just kind of playing this along, trying to be nice to the Europeans. He doesn't want to break up of NATO, but basically he's not giving them anything.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I mean, Trump saw what happened under Biden with the evacuation of Kabul. And Trump does not want to have that happen under his watch. I think there's enough people around to see the writing on the wall. Ukraine is losing and losing badly, and it's only going to accelerate and shift the responsibility onto the Europeans. Okay. It never would have started if I'd been president. Okay. We'll hear this over and over again. It's almost kind of a soft landing, because Zelensky is doing all this tweeting about security guarantees. We didn't hear that from the president of the United States. Okay.
No.
And if you think about it, everyone, the new national security strategy. George and I went over that with a fine-tooth comb a number of times. But giving Ukraine security guarantees for 15, 20, 30, 40 would be antithetical to what the thinking of this administration is all about. So, Trump did not throw him a bone. I didn't see it.
No, I didn't see it either. And that's exactly right. Because when you look at the national security strategy document, the goal there was to basically, hey, America is in the business of trying to create stability in Europe, and it went even further. We're in the business of trying to restore normal relations between Europe and Russia. So suddenly, America is being depicted as this mediator. Saying, well, we're on neither side. We're trying to mediate between Europe and Russia. That's not just a very different from the Biden administration. It's also very different even from the national security strategy document of his first term, because his first term said, oh, well, we're now doing the great power rivalry, so it's like, there's Russia, China, the United States, and we're all, this is competition with great powers. It's not really even doing that. It's just saying, well, I mean, actually, we're on the same page as Russia. We're trying to create stability and security on the European continent. So I think that is the thinking of the administration. It is going, taking a few steps here and a few steps there. So you can be going in different directions at the same time. But overall, we're not getting those the guarantees, that's what Zelensky came for. I mean, what else did he come for to Mar-a-Lago? He wanted the security guarantees, and he didn't get it. Trump
Well, and also everyone,
security guarantees.
The Donbass has been separated from Kiev's control since 2014. Time is passing, okay, and Zelensky and his crew know that. They it's used as a bargaining chip, okay. They don't want to give away something that is already gone. Okay, so they're saying, well, when it comes to the Donbass, that's so important to us. We cannot cede territorial control over to the Russians. Well, they've already lost it. Okay, and so their thinking is, what can we extract from the Europeans and the Americans to give up on the Donbass, something that is already lost? Okay. And they realistically know that they'll never get it back. It's incorporated into Russia now. Okay, they're Russian citizens. They have passports. They get pensions. They pay taxes. Okay, it's not going back. So if you want all of the Donbass, we want X, Y, and Z, and this, and this, and this. That's his game here. And it's only a matter of weeks now, months, before all of the Donbass.
I don't think so. I don't think that's the way he's thinking. I think he is thinking in terms of a tactical retreat or a tactical ceasefire, and then the whole war continues. I mean, I think that the plan is to continue for decades.
We're agreeing. We're agreeing, George. We're agreeing because by doing that, you get the security guarantees, you get the military aid, you get the financial aid, and then the conflict starts up again. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, okay. No, I think it's so. I think it's more or less saying, yeah, okay, and that of course is the European plan, and that's why this whole the 20-point plan, there was no way the Russians were ever going to accept it, because first of all, the NATO membership was still on the table, but more important, there were no restrictions on the military aid that was going to continue to pour into Ukraine, which means, well, you're going to keep this the war going, and I do think that the plan here, the Europeans and the Zelensky people, is a long, protracted war. I mean, it's not just 5-10 years. I think it's maybe 15, 20, 30, 40 years. It's like we're going to have a permanent war on the European continent. It's something that's just going to enfeeble, the idea is enfeeble Russia for decades to come. I mean,
who's going to be enfeebled first? Okay, again, it is a war of attrition in that sense. I mean, who's going to last this? Who will be the last man standing? I'm not putting a lot of money on Ukraine. And given trends in the European Union, I'm not putting much money on them as well. That's one of the big differences George and I have.
Well, I think that's a very good question. I mean, because I always thought that they're going to try and find other ways. I mean, they're going to try and get.
Well, no, they shadow fleet, and then
Right, right,
Transnistria, Moldova. Yeah, yeah.
Right. But they're also going to get. I think they're going to start thinking about getting the manpower, because they do have a manpower problem. They're going to go and start recruiting manpower from around the world. I think they're going to start. They'll go to Africa. They go to Asia. Hey, who's willing to sign up to fight in Ukraine? $30,000. Yeah, I mean,
I don't think there's going to be a lot of takers, George.
I think there will be, absolutely will be takers. You go to places in Africa, $30,000 sign up bonus. That's a lot of money. That's going to keep your family.
Well, that'll be the last money you earn.
Yeah, but people sign up. Yeah, look, young people.
I think it's an interesting theory. I think when there's so many of these stories of these mercenaries from mostly the West,
and there are mercenaries, but they haven't gone to Africa.
Oh yeah, and their fates have been quite tragic. Okay,
yeah, but that's not. Yes, but they still get the mercenaries and people. This is the point about first of all, young people. The young people in Africa. They actually think that they're immortal. That's the greatness of being young.
The thing is, George,
young, you do believe you're immortal. If you're not young, if you're middle aged, then you don't think you're immortal and you don't sign up. But young people, absolutely.
Yeah, but you have to keep in mind
$40,000, absolutely.
You have to keep in mind the narrative about Ukraine is very different in the global South than it is in the West. Okay, so I mean, these people willing to put their life on the line. Let's say $30,000. I mean, so why do they need people? It's because they're winning.
No, but it's a.
Or they need people because they're losing.
No, they don't care about that. I mean, if you say
I wonder. I mean, you want to spend the money, don't you? Don't you want to spend the money?
But look, first of all, a contract is a contract. You say you sign up for 1 year. You get 30,000 for that 1 year. That's money up front. So that's money to your family can use right away. And you basically think you can survive, and that's the point. Young people do believe they can survive.
I just don't see people.
And the people, no, but I absolutely do think that. Particularly, but it depends on where you go. Yeah, if you go in Europe, I don't think anyone in Europe is going to sign up. You go to Africa, where there's a huge surplus of population. I mean, they don't have the European problem where there's a dearth of a population, but where there's a surplus population, absolutely people will sign up. And particularly when the Americans and the Europeans start recruiting people, they're going to tell them, "Hey, we can win this war." I mean, that's part of the Western propaganda machine anyway, which is, "Hey, we're winning and Russia's losing." You absolutely can go and say, "We're winning this war," and you can make.
I think there'd probably be more Africans who'd want to join the Russian army than the Ukrainian army, but. Anyway, okay.
Well, that's a possibility. I mean, that's also. I mean, look, mercenaries. I think both sides may well, if the war continues, and I think it may well continue for some time, that both sides may well start.
Okay, all right. We're almost out of time. And George and I have shown, if I may say, about ourselves, enormous amounts of grace when it comes to when is the war coming to an end? Okay. See, George and I have been very sensitive to this question. So I'm going to ask George, and I'm not putting you on the spot, and you need a concrete answer, but what's 2026 have in store for this conflict, in your opinion? And I'll give my honest opinion because we're almost out of time.
Okay. My own feeling is 2026, the war will continue, and I think you might even get nastier. I don't see any likelihood of anything coming to an end in 2026.
Aw, shucks, George. Who's going to return to us all of the hours that we've talked about this ridiculous peace plan here, peace plan there, 20. Okay. I tend to agree. I'm not totally on board with that, but I will agree with George that this is far from over, and it's going to get more lives are obviously going to be lost, and I do not do this with pleasure. Quoting Victoria Nuland, there'll be some surprises. Okay?
Surprises along the way.
I mean, in the chat as we're speaking, apparently Putin's private residency has been a target of an attack. I don't have RT or TASS open right now.
We'll look that up.
Just to prove our point.
That's right. Anyway, Stone River says, I noticed the mainstream media is treating the Bush-Putin transcripts like the plague. 3 cheers for the gaggle. Thank you so much, Stone River. Thank you for your generosity all the year round. Really appreciate that. Carlos says, I think nothing will come out of this, and Russia will either fail or succeed militarily. Okay, thank you, Carlos. And Aristotle 1 says, why do you think the United Nations is not more involved in the Ukraine settlement? Well, I think everything depends on
Nobody invited them.
Look, it's the UN Security Council. I mean, UN can only get involved if the UN Security Council says get involved. If there's basically disagreement between UN Security Council members, the permanent members of the UN Security Council, then there's no way UN gets involved. And then Jenny, thank you so much, Jenny, as always, for your generosity. So sad you don't join us more frequently, but I hope you're well, Jenny. And she says, all Zelensky's hopes and dreams should be started off with Dear Santa. Yes.
Well, see, and Zelensky wouldn't even leave cookies and milk for Santa. The guy is so greedy. Okay.
And then Jenny says, I see Santa didn't bring you a bookcase. I don't know. Santa's late. It happened.
Oh, George, I'm sorry.
And then Stone River says, Trump went to Davos in 2017. Was it as long ago as that? I
think he's right. It was during his first administration.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay. That's already 9 years ago. I didn't know it was that. It just seemed more recent that he did this. But okay.
Trump has this time warp thing he does to all of us. Okay.
All right. Anyway, Jenny, I think, agrees with you, Peter. She says, if Africans sign up, it'll be for Russia. So that's, Jenny endorses your view. Anyway, our time is up. Thank you so much, everybody who joined us. Thank you so much for all of your comments and questions throughout the year, not just today, but throughout the year. All of your, generous contributions. Buddy, if Buddy was in a better mood, he'd be thanking you himself, but just he's never thanking. And we will be back. Yeah, he's sleeping. Yeah, there's nothing here to wake up for. So thank you so much for everything. We will be back in the new year for another live stream on next Monday. Tomorrow, join me for my solo, and then Happy New Year, everybody. See you in the new year. All the best. Bye-bye.